Dope. Thank you, man. Yeah, that was from last night's live stream. I guess I'll just kind of let this sit here while I set up some ink. You want to make art and comics with pen only? I think you definitely can, man. Just takes a little bit of getting used to, honestly. I don't think it's very difficult. It just kind of takes a lot of time. How do you draw a body from head to toe? Yeah, I could show kind of what I'm thinking for that. Um, for for drawing, like full figures, usually I'll start with the head if it's but it kind of depends on the scene. So like if I want like a character to be holding a gun or something, and like I want some sort of action, then I'll usually start from that point and then use that as the like starting place. But if I don't have like a need for it, then I'll usually start with the head. But yeah, if I was gonna do more of a kind of action scene, then would usually start from like the arm or leg and kind of have it like foreshortened outward and then kind of like develop um the character out from there. So it's kind of something like this. And then I would go out from the hand since it's kind of like the furthest thing in front. And then just go through with the rest of the character from there. It's a little more difficult for me since I'm like very used to going straight for the head. But then like if I start with kind of like some things that I'm more familiar, like the face and that sort of thing. A lot of when I'm drawing, I can't like visualize things on demand in my head. So a lot of what I'm doing is mostly like reacting to what happens. So even if the face doesn't turn out in the spot that I want, then I'll kind of still have like options as I go along, since I'm kind of like rendering as I'm drawing. So if the face didn't turn out kind of how I want, I can still kind of like pull the neck and pull different features around. And then usually as I'm like doing the character, then I'll kind of like add clothing along. But since it's more about the body for this. But yeah, and then I would just kind of like work my way, and I'm kind of going around the character and different features. And then I'm kind of like adapting so that the arm works out for the character. Then I want to kind of like keep extending the rest of his body to fit this sort of same perspective that's going on here. And I'll just kind of like work my way down the character. And if it helps for you to think of like different parts of the body as more simple shapes, I think that can be pretty useful. And that sort of thing, and kind of figuring out the shapes. And then kind of like as you learn more and more about anatomy and different things, then you can kind of like almost add those over top and out from that. So I think that can be kind of a useful thing. I might make a video on just kind of like shapes of things, or kind of how I'm thinking about shapes and use them. Yeah, I struggle with lathes and drawing fingers. Yeah, lathes can be a little bit tricky since um we don't often look at legs as much as we like see arms and things. What are your thoughts on drawing chibi way? It's kind of the way that Funko Pops look, for example. Yeah, I think chibi's pretty cool. I mean, it's like exaggerated forms and things, so I think it's cool. I don't really like um rank like a sort of art above another. They all have their things to them. But yeah, and then like once I have the body, I wouldn't normally kind of like map out beforehand, but when I'm drawing clothes, I'm often thinking about like the anatomy of the character and making the folds and different things like overlap and kind of like where it pinches, then making the folds a little bit different. This is a pretty bad pose. But yeah, usually I would start with the head and then work my way down. And I'm kind of like using details since I'm working with like straight ink. I'll kind of like use details and any knowledge of anatomy I have to work down the character. It's like especially on a face, I'll kind of like go for whatever whatever details I know about a face, and then use that to kind of work my way around the character and figure out kind of like what I want to go for a direction. And then it's kind of like all everything else is kind of like made up on the fly and off of reactions. And this is usually how I draw. And just kind of going from one feature to the next. It's like the chin. And then I'm thinking of like this piece right here, where the jaw would go. and then now I'm thinking of where the ear would go. So it's a lot of like um kind of like micro pieces and just kind of like working my way across slowly and just going by detail mostly and kind of just like following the detail as I go down and then adjusting it too, like the hair back there, and then bring the neck. This is kind of the approach that I like to go for figures, and pretty much everything is just very detail oriented. And then like I kind of just adjust it as I go, like add in cast shadows and different things. And then this way kind of like lets me keep customizing the character, and I don't really have like a know how my character is gonna be. So everything's like very like discovery as the character's happening. And I can kind of just add as much detail and change up whatever I need to on the fly. And also like I like drawing in this way too, because then I can add whatever sort of story elements I want to. Like if I'm left with this right now, I can always kind of just add more things. Like maybe um I want some sort of cats, some sort of cat on his back here, and I made this little strap over here to kind of like wrap around, and now I can have a cat in my scene, and just kind of like it opens up a lot of opportunities to keep adding new things and kind of just keep going along with it. What brush would you recommend? Um I don't know, honestly, from using a lot of different brushes and brush pens. I kind of just like grab whatever nowadays because I kind of like they're not really that much different. They each have like their own like little like downside and positives to them. So I think really just kind of like trying some out and see what fits with like what kind of effects you want to make. Like this Kuretake one is very kind of like straightforward. It just kind of like is mostly good at making consistent lines. Like it kind of only wants to make like that like line width, and it doesn't have much variety unless you like go harder on it, but it doesn't have as much texture as some other brushes would. So then there's like a bunch of different things like that. And if you're like thinking about brush pens, there's also a lot of like what kind of ink does it come with? Because like some inks like smudge where other ones don't as much. And then also some react to water if it's water-based ink. And then also if you use like alcohol markers, some inks will start to bleed off if you use alcohol markers. So it kind of, I don't know. I can't really recommend a single brush, but kind of just like, you'll probably have to test a lot of things and kind of find out um, what works best for what you're trying to go for. Yeah, there's fountain brushes too, and I put like fountain pen ink in here, and this one has like different different things that the other one doesn't have. Like this one makes a lot of different lines. The ink is fountain pen ink, so acts a bit differently as well. And this one's a little bit water based. And then like the Pentel color brush, kind of like how I was saying, they each have like different strengths. I'd say one of the downsides is actually the squeeze tube for this one. Is what I kind of don't like about it because the line like variety almost changes too much to where when I want darks or big areas of black, it will kind of dry out on me and get me more haired lines like this, which can be good sometimes, but it's a little hard to then get like ink going back in. So yeah, but it is really good for like smudging ink with, which is kind of it's really nice to have like when I'm just want to work on like a sketchbook and don't really want anything else besides the brush. I think that's like the main perk of it, and then I can kind of like just be doodling. And then if I want some kind of cast shadow and want some shading, then it does like a good job at getting a mini gray tone going. So yeah, just kind of like different things. I think if you play around with some brushes or brush pens and kind of like see how they react to water, what are some weaknesses and like strengths of the brushes, it kind of helps figure out for me like how to use them too. Like if I was like using this Kuretake one versus the Pentel one, I would draw a lot kind of for me a lot differently to sort of like make use of it. Like this one doesn't have like as much smudging because the ink, so I'd probably have some Sumi or like distilled water with diluted ink to then kind of like shade with that. So it's kind of like I don't know. They each have their different things, but at the end of the day, all the brushes have bristles, and just the brush itself kind of like is the same across all of them, really. What are tips for long fabrics like capes? Yeah, I guess I could. I was kind of drawing a cape a little bit there. Yeah, for fabrics, usually when I'm drawing a cape or something, I would kind of, if I was gonna do a cape, I mean, there's a lot of different capes, but sometimes it'll start as like a hood, and often, like if I'm drawing a cape from the front, and my character's here, I like to put like a connecting point on the cape front and have like, I don't know, some kind of like medallion or way that the cape connects to the character. And I think that's kind of like a way to make the cape a lot more believable is like this sort of like connecting area to where it holds on to like maybe a character's chest piece or something. And then from that connecting point, I kind of think of like the cape coming out from there. And a lot of times the folds would be pretty like um a little bit unpredictable in things. So I kind of think of it as like folding paper almost, but it's a little bit thicker. And I kind of section it off sometimes too to add a little bit of an interesting shape. But yeah, and I mean you can go as long and wild as with your cape as you want, and then I'm kind of like thinking that this is sort of like the top plane, and maybe like it comes down and through a little bit. And you could like go in and add shadows, like cast shadows and things where these little folds are overlapping. And I like to do contour lines to kind of like show that um, this like kind of like the thickness of the cape, I guess. But yeah, I use the shadows to kind of like describe like the overlap and something like that. And then like from there, yeah, and the cape also is gonna, it's like a piece of clothing or like fabric in the air. So depending on what your character is doing, like if he's more, maybe he's like landing from the air, then the fabric is gonna like react to that and sort of like the impact that the character is coming down with will have the cape react pretty much with the motion. And then for like this one, it kind of seems like he's moving forward. So I could get a bit of like a I don't know why this turned into like a superhero character. But yeah, I could get more of like a running pose with him. And then the cape would just kind of like react with it. And then for like a dress or something, kind of the same idea, except more so wrapping around anatomy. So if I had a some kind of female, and then the dress, I kind of like to wrap it around the anatomy and different parts, and kind of the movement as well. And then kind of like the armpits would be different like pinch points to where the fabric would come out of. So that's kind of why I'm doing these contour lines out from there. And then kind of just thinking of where these pinch points would be. And the nice thing is, wherever the pinch points are for the fabric is usually where your shadows are too, since there's not much light that would be in there. Oftentimes they're kind of in the same spot. And then if I had kind of like some sort of waist, like belt kind of thing, then a lot of times when I get to this lower part where there's a lot more fabric on a dress, I'm kind of thinking about like the movement of the character. And I like to render kind of like down as I'm making the character. So the fabric I use sort of like as movement to get the character going in some sort of way. And it can kind of be like as wild as you want with the dress and different things. But yeah, I don't know if that kind of helps for fabric, but then like the same thing for like clothing, kind of thinking of how it's sitting on the character as well. And I use it to kind of like shape out the character's arm and thinking a lot about the different like how the roundness of his arm is, but then also the anatomy that's on top, and then sort of like put in the clothes on top, and then where there would be a fold, then kind of pinching it, and almost like that. So a lot of it's like kind of cause and effect of actions. Um, just woke up at 2 a.m. for some reason. I think my body knew you were streaming. That's funny. May you draw a Black Panther, please? I actually forgot to draw Black Panther yesterday when I was doing the Marvel stuff. That's funny. Yeah, same. I do mix it up with small pens if I want small details. Yeah, honestly, that's probably the best way to go about using brush and then having like a fine liner. That's probably the best combo. Um, but yeah, I like to have a I like to have a lot of I really like simple setup with not too many tools. So there is no dead set rules for folds, I guess. I mean, there's probably probably like rules to it, but like a lot of things you can just be as creative as you want, like and as long as you kind of like understand like very basic of like how things react and that sort of thing. Yeah, I don't think you need to be too crazy with it. But yeah, a lot of the folds and things I do is a lot for movement is kind of what I'm thinking of. And there will be like a lot more wrinkles on the arm versus like someone's back and chest probably won't have as many, especially the back. Usually for like the back, you kind of have like um they often just go with like the anatomy of the person and kind of follow that. But yeah, usually the back won't have too much since it's more of like a longer piece. And then the clothes is just kind of like being wrapped around that object. Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, pants and legs probably have the most wrinkles. And that sometimes like If someone's sitting, then you'd probably have a lot on like if they're like hunched over or something like that. But a lot of the folds are kind of like also if you guys are kind of familiar with like contour or like wrapping lines around form and that sort of thing, it's like basically along the same thing, except you have different like um sizing of it, and it's more like paper or a thinner material with a lot of different heights and different positions it can be. Tips for small buildings. Mm, I'm not I'm not much of a I haven't drawn buildings much. I used to draw them more often. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I can give too much advice for buildings, but one thing from just like observation is kind of I used to draw a lot of buildings with just like very simple things. I don't know why, but I used to draw houses a lot, like just almost like how a kid would draw a house and like oversimplify it. But I don't know. I think I'll if you can kind of think of like different features that you would see on a house. Um, I don't know if you're talking like more of a like a modern house, but I think it's pretty like open since buildings are pretty like you can be as crazy with them. Like if you've ever seen like the really artsy buildings with a bunch of designs and things, but I think for making kind of a convincing building, if you just kind of think about a lot of features that the house would have, and then kind of like a lot of houses have a garage door, and then like maybe a driveway, yeah, there's like so many uh different different routes to really go um with it. I mean, you could add different different landscape and things like that. And then from the like the garage, then you'd probably get more into the main house. And for like more square objects or things, I kind of like to try to think through the object and mostly like where that ground is. So if I want the next part of this house to kind of be like halfway through the garage, then I'll kind of like imagine going halfway in and then maybe making this the front door. Yeah, I guess for like houses, I'm kind of like learning as I'm drawing this, but especially for like houses and things, it's kind of like a repeating um, thing with them. Is that like every house kind of has a roof system, and you can kind of like make the roof as complex as you want by having different overlaps and kind of like different sections stacking onto each other. And then kind of like on the roof, there's like sometimes gutter system and it's kind of like little features, like maybe a chimney, and just kind of think of like whatever details you know about a house. You could have a radio, some sort of antenna, and then like shingles. I was watching a video a while back, but there's something about like windows. There's like when they're building a house, there's like kind of like from what I can remember, there's like a setup for the windows that they have, and they have to be like a certain distance for like the board. But yeah, you could probably watch like a bunch of videos on how like houses are constructed. And this is probably not right at all, but just kind of like what I remember for that sort of thing. But there's like certain heights and different things for windows and kind of like the spacing. But a lot of it is kind of just stacking these um, different shapes. And if I wanted to bring the roof down, I have a little bit of a back. And then I could go even further and have like maybe this is a pretty large house, and then have their kind of like the garage out here, the driveway, and just kind of like a lot of it, especially from top view, would be like roofs and things. But yeah, and then like, well, you said small buildings, so I guess that would be for like houses, but then like cafes and like small business places where pretty much there's a similar thing where you have like these stacking objects on top and having some kind of like roof system and different functions and things. And then a lot of times for like a lot of different small businesses or stores in that thing, they often have like signs and that sort of thing near them, sometimes on the street, and it's kind of like the same thing. Add in as much details as I kind of know about that sort of building. Like there's a door, often a window for you to see in the building. And then same with like the gutter idea. There's probably some kind of rain system or like different things, different functions for how the building is kind of gonna maintain itself. So I think really it comes down to kind of different functions because most things kind of have a purpose of why they're there. Especially for buildings where things are like a lot about um, cost and things like that. You probably wouldn't stick with something if it didn't have much of a use to it. I feel like a lot of my building knowledge is probably from like movies and games. But yeah, I should probably draw more buildings. I haven't drawn them in a long time. But yeah, and then going into like a city would just have more houses, probably alleyways and different things. And a lot of the sizing is kind of comparing like the previous building, and then the higher you go up would probably start to require like maybe like a stair system and more windows and different things. But yeah, and then you could just keep going until you run out of space. But a lot of buildings kind of have a very box structure unless you start getting into like um, something a bit more fancier that has like more angles and more of a artsy style to it. But then it's the same sort of thing, just different shapes, really. But yeah, buildings are pretty open on what you can do with them. But yeah, hope that kind of helps for buildings. I'm definitely not an expert. I barely ever draw buildings anymore. 'Cause I'm mostly like into characters, but kind of some things. I'll get some ink set up now. I guess while I have some um, ink here. And then for like shading, I'd mostly think about cast shadows now when I shade. I used to think a lot more about directional lighting, but lately I've kind of been toning that down a bit since it can kind of shadow a lot of things that I don't always want to have in shadow. But yeah, I try to think a lot about cast shadows and also sometimes like the different colors of things too, and if there'd be dark in value. And ambient occlusion, like when things are close together, like this building back here is pretty close to the other one, so I'd put a bit of shadow in that alleyway. And the sign is kind of overhanging, so I'd put a cast shadow down there. Same with this little ridge across the building. There's kind of a tent back there. And then like the sign would cast the cast shadow. But yeah, that's probably how I'd go about shading a little bit of buildings. Bum, bum, bum. I have no idea what I'm gonna draw yet. Maybe I'll make this in some kind of alien. I don't know why YouTube keeps changing my chat settings on me, but I haven't been able to see chat for a while. I struggle a lot with adding little finer details on characters like wrinkles and facial lines, or like clothing details and folds. Tips for hands, fingers, and other small body parts. Mm, always ends up looking super unnatural. For like for wrinkles and folds. Whenever I'm doing a face, a lot of the wrinkles are kind of like the different anatomy of the character. Like if you think of like the if you kind of think of like the skull of a face, and then that the skin is like basically wrapped over top, and so like with the different shapes of the skull, then the wrinkles are kind of like you put skin over top, which sounds kind of messed up, but then like the eyes and different things, the skin is very like elastic and stretchy. So then the skin will kind of like lay out depending on how the other features are. So like you put big like brow muscles, and then kind of like how the muscles move make the different wrinkles, and kind of like stretches across, almost like contour, like going across the different forms. So like if the upper half is kind of rounded, then different wrinkles and things can go across the rounded part, and then when it gets to like a different muscle, then the wrinkle will stop or change into different ones. Like the eye is like a lot of wrinkles along the outside, and they'll kind of like all form with how the face is. And if you have your mouth open, then it changes the wrinkles as well. Like the mouth open will like pinch the upper part up, so then the nose wrinkles will form with it too, and the cheeks will come out. So yeah, for I like drawing a lot of like older characters. So I kind of have like fun with the wrinkles since it lets you add like a lot more detail than you normally would be able to with a younger character, since the wrinkles kind of like almost determine the age. But yeah, and then like folds are basically like the same idea of you have like a shape, and it could be like a pretty like little bit of a different shape like this. And then the wrinkles and folds are basically like contour lines, like kind of like going around the different planes. And when it hits like a plane change, or like fibers are going a different way, then it'll kind of like shift around and go more towards with it. And that's kind of like how it folds too. If some kind of like sheet or cloth was going to be like set onto, like you had a towel or something and you were gonna put it onto this object, then it would kind of just like fold outward, and gravity would basically take it and follow the shape of the thing, but then pinch on the corners and kind of stretch downward. Yeah, I think like wrinkles in drapery and that sort of thing has like a lot of freedom to it, and there's a lot of different like ways the clothes could fall, and there's so many different materials and things like that. But yeah, the most common wrinkles that I do on a lot of my characters is like the eye wrinkles, and then I'm like kind of going around to where like the skull, kind of like around where the skull would be, and then from there, then nose kind of has like a ridge, and then the other eye, kind of like if you think about a lot of different expressions that someone would make is usually where the wrinkles are. So like people will like laugh and their eyes will squint, or people's mouths moves a lot, so there would be a lot of wrinkles around the mouth. So if you kind of like think about different functions and how it would affect the skin over time, I think the wrinkles might make a bit more sense. He got some bushy brows, but I see that makes a lot makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Yeah, hopefully it helps a little bit. I'm trying my best to kind of explain some things I know. Mhm. Oh, tips for hands, fingers, smaller body parts. Yeah, for hands. Someone asked about hands the other day too. I'm not the best on hands, but usually, I like to think about mainly the pinky finger, and I don't know why, but like, I know this is like a common like Disney hand pose, but I always think of the pinky because a lot of times it's kind of like the finger that often shows in a pose, where a lot of the other fingers might not show up. And I think um like I used to try to draw all the fingers separately and tried to get as many fingers as possible on my characters. But then I realized a lot of angles you actually like won't see all of the fingers. Like it's kind of rare to have all the fingers showing, because like I mean even like my hands like just doing different things, like a lot of the fingers disappear, and when characters are holding or interacting with things, even less fingers show. So I like to think of the pinky as like a starting place for me, and then kind of like the your middle finger and ring finger, I think, um, are the ones that often will go together. And then so the pinky and the pointer finger, and then the thumb. I like to think of that they have a lot of movement to them, and they can kind of like do what they want. Where the middle finger and um, ring finger are a bit more like they'll kind of like follow the pack, if that made sense. So I'll try to. So like yeah, right here I have like the pointer finger leading, and then I would often have the ring and middle finger on their own, and then kind of like some sort of um, Spider-Man hand thing. But yeah, a lot of it I like to try to like hands are kind of hard to explain. 'Cause a lot of it's like very intuition for me, but I like to get like some sort of general movement. So if the hand is like downward, then I'll kind of like almost use gravity since oftentimes our hands are pretty relaxed unless we're like making a fist or something. So if a hand is like downward, then I'll usually kind of just like gravity pull the fingers into a certain direction. And a lot of times I tuck the thumb underneath just because um, it seems to be like a natural resting pose. But yeah, I guess like you could think of the hand as like I know a lot of people like to split it off as like the palm and the fingers more like tubes. But for me, I usually learn things by just kind of like playing around with them. So I can't really give like a very logical or answer to really how to do with hands other than like kind of just like playing around and doing different things. One thing I used to do is kind of in a lot of my drawings, I would have a lot of hand interactions. So like a lot of wrists and forearms. I used to like constantly kind of like do this sort of thing where kind of like a little game where I'd have hands doing different actions like kind of they're mostly it's just like all playing around with forearms and hands mostly, but kind of just like different interactions like this. And then another hand could be on top. But yeah, I think just kind of like playing around with how hands react in certain situations and like if you want to have it holding something kind of like where all the pieces would go for like holding a gun. And then if you wanted like a goofy pose of their hand like supporting it, I don't know. Just kind of like this is how I play around with hands and different things, but a lot of it's kind of like interaction and purpose. I think for like making more believable hands. Like if a character is resting, their hand is gonna be like kind of limp, where if they're trying to grip onto something, like three fingers or so might be doing a lot of the work, and then like one finger is off, and then maybe the thumb is just kind of like supporting when they're holding. So kind of just like messing around with different things like that. Yeah, I don't I don't know. Hands are kind of tricky. I think for most things, especially from drawing from imagination, kind of just like playing around and learning different pieces, and then messing around with those pieces, and then kind of like figuring out better positions that you want to place them. Advice with Bryce. That'd be a pretty funny like series thing. Cyborgs today. Yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm gonna draw yet. Still kind of figuring it out. Maybe some cyborgs though. Maybe I'll actually do some kind of vehicle, maybe. This brush is a little too good at holding water. Almost drowned in my page. Do you have an image in your mind of what he's doing? No, I have actually no idea what he's doing. Yeah, I have no clue. Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, I can't picture things in my head on demand. So controlled and measured. It's a lot of like just adapting really to like whatever happens with the characters and different things, and then kind of just basing it off of that. You have more likes than viewers. Very unique. Oh, my stream disconnected for a second. Can you draw dragons from imagination? Dragons are cool. Yeah, I do. I've drawn a few dragons on some of the past videos. My favorite kind of dragon is probably like a Chinese or Japanese like, style one. Yeah, I haven't done a European kind of one in a long time. I used to have a dragon book when, well, I guess I still do probably have a dragon book, but I got a dragon book when I was a kid, and that thing was like magical. It had like a bunch of different dragon types. I wanted to draw some dragons from reference and eventually from imagination. I always wanted to do that. Like mythical animals too. Yeah, I really like a bunch of folklore kind of like creatures and I have no idea where this drawing is going. but I thought it was gonna be a black and white drawing. Yeah, I wanted to add a bit of color, make it a little more fun. Nice work, inspiring. Thank you, man. I sense a lot of orange from the writing guy. Yeah, I am actually gonna color him orange. I've been thinking about getting Ohu markers so they're as good as Copic. I haven't used much of Copic for like coloring really. The only Copic I've tried is like the grayscale markers. So I don't really have anything to to compare them to really. I just like that they're a lot cheaper than Copic. Jeez, couldn't find a color. Did you draw boxes 1 million times to develop this level of intuitive drawing? No, I don't really draw. I didn't really draw boxes that much. Do you sleep, rest your ink and brush, brush machine? Yeah, last night I didn't get too much sleep, but were there other exercises that help to master perspective? I don't think I've mastered perspective. I'm still like learning about it every day that I draw, but I don't know. I kind of like for me, I don't really like drawing simplified forms too much. Kind of I don't know. Like I think it's like drawing boxes and things are useful to like more so thinking of the idea of the box, but there aren't many things that are like actually like only this shape. Like even like a packaging box has like the lid and it's a box that's been like folded in on itself and folded out. So even like different things like that, like a basket still has probably a handle or like a way to hold it. So for me, I like just drawing and going for the actual thing rather than practicing a simplified way of it first. Um, and like same with like anatomy and different things. Like I know a lot of people like doing like some sort of like mannequin sort of thing, but I don't know. For me, I never did any mannequin practice or even really drew a mannequin ever. Um, I like focusing more on like just kind of going for what a human face looks like and just trying my best to use the detail to kind of like get me there and go about it that way rather than trying to get the whole form out at once. Because a lot of how I draw is like very detail orientated and using detail to kind of like find where the different forms are. So when I'm drawing, I will just be like thinking of like the collarbone and whatever I know at the time is what I use to get the character and different things going rather than simplifying the character way down and then go in and try to figure out where things are. I don't know. I learned from a more like playing around kind of um way of doing it. awesome things. I hope it helped a little bit kind of explain what I my thought process. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I think for like the simplified forms are really good, especially to be like thinking about like every now and then. I think it's like really useful for me thinking about like when I'm doing certain angles that I don't normally do. Like I'll kind of think about some simplified forms in my head, but um it's like very it just kind of helps to figure out things as I go. But I don't know. There's just so many things that to draw and different like details and functions of things that I would rather just kind of like explore those things rather than spending a lot of time on practicing simple forms. I just kind of want to learn as much as I can about different things. So I have this project coming up, and it's in pen and ink, but the paper I did the art on is super smooth, and I have to paint it in watercolor. How do I go about painting this? Like you're doing pen and ink and then watercolor over it? Um, I don't know. I've drawn on some pretty waxy, smooth paper with ink, and I've tried watercolor too on paper. I don't think it'll be too big of a problem. You'll probably just have to wait for like ink to dry a little bit longer because it might want to sit on your page. And then if it's like I don't know what kind of paper. Is it like Bristol paper? Oh, it's super smooth and the water just like hovers above the page. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It's Bristol. Um, I like mostly use smooth Bristol, so I don't know. I'm kind of used to it, but I don't really use watercolor, so I can I don't know. Honestly, if I was in that boat, I'd probably do like most of the like I don't know like the rules for your project or anything, but I'd probably do most of the work in ink and then kind of like I don't know. I'm more of a ink person than like painting with watercolor, but I'd probably like do most of it in ink and then do like ink washes to build up darks and lights and then like add blacks and kind of get most of it in black and white, especially if you're worried about the paper with the watercolor because I think ink will probably might be a little bit easier to control and then you could probably just like do some like simple coloring with the watercolor. But yeah, I think ink can definitely carry. The paper I'm drawing on right now is um, a smooth watercolor paper. But it's a little bit more absorbent than what you described. But usually I actually prefer the smoother paper. All right, not sure why my stream closed, but Alright, I think I'm gonna end the stream for today. Thank you everyone for watching and hanging out. I'll see you guys in this one.